Hey, hey,
Hi,
Hi,
can you
how
hear
are
us
you?
okay? Good, thanks. How are you?
doing well.
Good, good.
So I'm Colin and that's Tim.
Pleasure to meet you.
Hi. Yeah, I obviously like wrote down your names, but I was like, hope I can see them because it's gonna be
Yeah,
hard to know who I'm talking to.
right.
Yeah.
We've had like one or two people do it without the video and it's really strange. It's like staring into a
Yeah,
black hole and speaking. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah, thanks for hanging out with us today, taking some time out of your afternoon. We know you're probably busy running your business, so we appreciate your time today.
Yeah, my husband took a vacation day today, so I could work all because we have a 2-year-old at home.
Hmm.
Okay.
And so I'm at a co-working space all day today. It's been really nice.
Nice.
Cool. Cool. And where are you based out of?
I live in Columbus right now,
Okay.
Indiana, but I lived the last 5 years in North Carolina. We just moved here over the summer.
Okay.
But I grew up in Bedford,
Okay.
Indiana.
Got it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Small town.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then went to IU in Bloomington. So
Great.
Okay. What'd you study at IU? We're in Indianapolis, by the way.
yeah, I think Kelsey had told me that. I got a degree in studio art and in telecom, and then a minor in art history. So studio art, like when I finally got to the elective portion, it was all computer based art, but I still had to do like the sculpture, the drawing, the
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
traditional art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. Gotta prove it. Um, so with the interview, you always have final say. So once we're done, Tim and I, we record our own intro, just kind of intro who you
Mhm.
are. We have show notes like so from this minute to this minute, we talk about XYZ. So we'll send all of that over to you once we kind of do the final edit. If anything, you're like, that didn't come out right, let's take that out. So like I said, you have final approval, but you can say anything you want on here. Anything
Okay.
goes. Yeah, some people really take advantage of that. And but yeah, so we're rolling. I figured we just kind of keep chopping it up. Maybe start with kind of introducing yourself. I know we've talked some where you went to school, but we'll just keep that train rolling and let people kind of know who you are, and we'll use the questions as we go.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So with you were saying you had to do all the drawing and things. What initially led you to studying studio design, wanting to do that in college?
Well, you have to pick your proposed major in high school, even when most of the time that doesn't stick. And so when I
Right.
applied to colleges, I actually applied with an interior design intended major. And then my second semester of my senior year, I took a computer graphics class in high school, and that pretty much steered me in the other
Yeah.
direction. So as soon as, I immediately changed, never did any interior design, immediately went to the graphic design portion of it and studied in the art school, and was one of the few that never changed their major and is using their degree. So
Yeah. I feel like I'm finally maybe using part of my degree,
Yeah.
or I'm using less of it than when I left college.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. That you actually found something and stuck with it. Like I was going to be 30 different things when I was a kid. So, and none of
yeah,
them were what I do.
yeah.
So when I was checking out kind of your website and things, yeah, so I saw you move down to North Carolina. So you left corporate. I saw you were in corporate for a while. Talk to us
Mhm.
about that, because we each have left corporate, kind of similar path to do our own thing. So take us through that journey a little bit.
Yeah, so when I graduated, I was engaged to my now husband, but I met him when he was already out of school, and he lived in Batesville, Indiana. And so I tried to get a job there, which is a super small
Yeah.
town. And somehow I got very lucky and worked for a telecommunications company doing graphic design, social media management, that the single person for a 90-person company. Um, and kind of the equivalent of like a local rural like Xfinity or Comcast. So it was like TV, phone, internet. And so I was doing a lot of designing like channel guides and brochures and stuff like that. So not the most exciting design work, but I was very fortunate and very thankful to actually get a job in that area, um, doing what I wanted to do. But then my husband got relocated to Charlotte, North Carolina with his job, and that's what took us there, um, for the last 5 years. So when we moved there, that was kind of my turning point of I applied to a couple jobs in Charlotte and none of them really panned out. So the whole time just simultaneously trying to get some freelance opportunities. And my job from Indiana ended up letting me stay contracted on. And that was really, I was very fortunate for that because I know most entrepreneurs don't have that steady paycheck while they're building their business. And so I thought maybe they'd keep me on for 6 months, but they ended up keeping me on for 3 years remote.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a good opportunity to build Swell Design at the same time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
And so you're under contract with them for 3 years. Beyond that, what did it look like getting additional clients? Where did you find them? How did that kind of build out besides the initial company?
Yeah. So I think that was the hardest part was, I grew up in Bedford. I lived in Batesville. IU was like the biggest area I'd ever lived. And Charlotte is a population of 1 million people. So it's huge.
Yeah.
And we knew nobody. And my husband traveled from business to business all day. So he wasn't really in a workplace environment where he was meeting people. And I was just home all the time. And it really started with just Facebook groups. I would just join some Facebook groups. And if I saw people looking for the services that I could provide, I had like a free website out there and would just direct people there and, was doing logos and stuff for like $100.
Yeah.
And some of those people I now 5 years later am like going back to who have helped me get business in Charlotte and offering like, hey, I know so much more now. If you're open to it, I'd love to like rebrand for you just to thank them because they're still recommending me, even though that was, much less skilled, much less knowledgeable back then. But they've helped me grow so much where now I don't do any advertising. It's all just referral coming in through my own website from other clients. So.
Yeah. Those referrals are important, especially like you kind of alluded to it, but like you may not be doing like the largest chunk of business for them, but if you can develop a good relationship and you establish yourself as reliable, they'll forward you onto something else that could be even bigger. So that's good.
Yeah.
I was wondering, so like when you first formed the business and you kind of formed like your service offerings and like what you're going to provide to people, how did that look like? Did you kind of build that off of what you were doing for the contracted company, or like how did you kind of hone in? Because there's a lot of different routes you can take with design. So kind of how did you form that and kind of how did you zero in on that?
It took a long time to figure out which route it was going to go. I mean, I obviously knew the design portion and doing logos and brochures and collateral. For a while, I did a lot of wedding invitations and wedding suite design. I'm just now, I would say this year, phasing out of that category. Also did some like hand lettering stuff and, tried my hand at an Etsy shop and had all these different things going, but it really just came down to the thing that people were coming to me most for was branding and logo design and the experience and the reputation that I had. And I was very fortunate where some of those early clients, they were just starting out then too. And now they have grown to be super successful. And so people know them and they're like, who did your stuff? And so once I finally pared that down and I started offering website design in 2019, that is really when it solidified. Like I don't have to say yes to everything anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's nice when you can start to get a little more picky and choosy and taking the bigger projects. But that's really cool to see like, oh, I did the raw like form of design or branding, and then you see their growth. What kind of on average, and maybe you don't have a numerical value, but after you work with someone, what kind of growth do they see typically?
Yeah. So typically, I mean, a lot of designers that are in my position where you've been around for a while, you're getting those higher quality clients. They take away the logo only services because a lot of people think there's no point in having just a logo if you don't have a brand to go with it and the strategy behind it. But I'm at kind of an interesting point where I understand that people don't have a budget for a full brand when they're starting. And so it's one of my goals to always kind of have that logo only option, even though it's more beneficial if they could do the whole brand, but sometimes they're starting from nothing. And this is the first investment that they're putting into themselves to have something visual to associate. And so it really depends on how serious the client is. But when I have a client who I can tell is all in, I mean, I have clients who I'll do their website, I'll redo their website, and they've had, triple the bookings on the site.
Wow.
And I have one client who I've now done 3 different logos under her umbrella and 2 websites. So then that all started back in 2017 when I did her very first single logo,
cool.
and she's just grown to different courses and, coaching program and different things. So it's really cool to see how those can evolve and change alongside them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And obviously part of branding as well as brand storytelling and what you want that brand to speak to customers. When you sit down with a new client and kind of develop a logo or a brand plan or whatever, what are some of the questions that you ask them, or what are some of the things that you address with your clients to kind of form that clear picture of the brand for them?
Yeah. So sometimes they haven't thought of these questions before,
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But sometimes they have to sit with those questions for a while, but it goes further than just your target market and your target, how old are they? And are they mainly women or men? Or, it's really about what, when your clients come to you, what problems do they have and how can you help them solve those problems? And, bringing that into the brand, because we're speaking to them. We want people who visit your website or see your brand for the first time to resonate with that target market. So if that is mainly I'm doing a lot for hair salons and stylists right now.
Okay.
And so talking to them and saying who's your ideal client? When they come to you, and this can get really specific because I know growing up, you're oh, I can just go anywhere and get a haircut. But hairstylists have a preference. They prefer to just work on blondes, or they prefer to just work, they'll on different types of clients that have different needs. And so you have to make sure that the branding and the messaging, when people go there, if they don't need that type of service, maybe they're not quite as quick to connect, but the people that do need it really see that right away. And that can be in the coloring or just the type of person that typically will go and spend money to get their hair completely colored. And so it's really just diving into mainly of that. What's the problem and how can you fix it? And how can we show that you can fix it for them with the design?
Okay.
And those questions, are those things you do in an in-person initial consultation, or when someone goes on your website and emails you, hey, I need help? Are there some questions that almost everyone gets? How do you kind of streamline that process?
So no matter what service or what type of client, I always do a free 30-minute call at the beginning to go over, learn about them, make sure that I can deliver what they're looking for and that there's not somebody better suited that I can direct them towards. And I ask some of those questions during that call, but it's mainly once they sign on, they then will get a questionnaire to fill out. And if, I always tell them the more detailed you can do, the better. I have them create a Pinterest board for their brand. And that's anything from colors and logo inspiration, but also what would you like your dream office to look like? Anything that can kind of visually represent how a client would feel when they interact with your brand. And so that's all done on the computer. And then I read through it. And if I feel like they haven't given me enough information, then I'll be let's get on a phone call. Let's screen share. Let's build out this Pinterest board together a little bit further. And some things like that.
Yeah.
And most of the clients that you work with, are you usually working with the CEO of the company or the owner, or is that usually the person you are working with within the organization?
It's usually solo entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I got a couple that have, a couple people underneath of them, but it's mainly just solo female entrepreneurs for the most part.
Gotcha. And do you kind of prefer that type of client, like the one-on-one? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
It tends to move a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
Not that I won't work with people that have a team, but it's a lot harder to integrate feedback from 5 people than feedback from one person.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Good point.
Okay.
Have you worked with any businesses where you saw like the industry they were in or the type of business, and it was just really out there, like something you never would have thought of existed?
Yeah, well, I actually like looked at some of your stuff, and I know that you're familiar with this industry a little bit, but one of my clients is she trains nurses on medical cannabis.
Okay. Yeah.
And so she does like courses specifically for registered nurses on how to consult patients on how to use like medical cannabis. And
Oh,
so that's something like
fantastic.
I didn't even know existed, and have done a lot of work with her over the last few years. Yeah, I have someone right now who is a lawyer specializing in like food law, so like food allergies, and
Oh, fascinating.
but
Wow.
Okay.
also has like a fiction book that she's like
Okay.
advertising at the same time. So like
Wow.
kind of an author, but also a lawyer.
Yeah.
So yeah, people come with a lot of different stuff. Um, and it's awesome. It's amazing to see other people doing, even with Kelsey, who you had on a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
doing something so out of the box where you've never heard of it, but it's such a great idea.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about what I do is every client, I'm doing the same work, the same software, the same technical abilities, but I'm learning about so many different industries
Hmm.
and getting these little tidbits of information about so many businesses.
Yeah. And that just makes your service like even more quality over time. It's like the more different people you work with, the more you can serve other people. Cause like I run a resume writing
Mhm.
business. And so like one of the objections that I would get from someone is like, oh, have you worked with someone in this industry before? But I found that like, if I can just take on as many industries as possible, like it allows me to better serve other industries. And I think it just makes you more credible. So that's good.
Yeah, and I think that's something that again with other designers who have been around for several years, they start to there's that pressure to like niche down. Um,
Mhm.
and I struggle with that because I like the clients I work with who are in that beginning stage.
Mhm.
But I also do really like working with these clients in the beauty industry right now with, these hairstylists and estheticians and makeup artists and things, which is not something that I'm well versed in. I like have never had my hair colored and just go get a regular cut every time. But I think the creativity that's there compared to like a financial advisor, where that has to fit inside of a certain box typically,
Mhm.
whereas a stylist or a salon, you can have a lot more creativity show in that type of design. So it's a little bit more fun to work on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find that most of the time, like, even though you may not be as familiar with an industry, like the quality of your questions can get them talking about their business and
Mhm.
kind of get the ideas
Mhm.
flowing to help you out. Cause it's kind of like a mutually beneficial thing. Like you help them out so they can help you out by the questions you ask them. Did you find
Yeah.
that that's true with your business? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think, doing this 5.5 years, it's only in the last year and a half that I've really started to see what it could be and
Mhm.
started to see that I am like an expert in this field and people are trusting me and coming to me. And I think that it all stems from that working with, and someone else that I know that does this. One of the things she talks about all the time is like not saying no just based on industry alone.
Mhm.
And I think that's so important because you get to stretch those muscles. If I only did beauty industries, I'm not testing out other parts of my design knowledge where I am doing like a financial person or like a venture capitalist who I had, something else where it's completely different and it's almost using a different part of the brain to make those come to life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
So you said you're finally seeing what it could be. What are you seeing in that vision? And what is your plan to scale this thing, if that is a plan to scale, or maybe just like what you're doing right now?
Yeah. In my corporate job, I was making around like $30,000. And so the first couple years with this, I made around $30,000. And I thought, okay, that's good. That's the equivalent. That's probably my ceiling and where I'll end up. And um, I had my husband and I had our first child 4 months before the pandemic started. And so that was interesting. And we were still in North Carolina. We had no family support close by. and doing this business during a pandemic with no childcare. uh, it was really hard, but it made me kind of think, like, it made me realize how valuable my time is and how limited it is. And it used to be, well, oh, I'll just do that for you. I'm not going to charge. Like, it's not a big deal. I'll just do it for you. And now it's like every minute is worth something now.
Right. Yeah.
So true.
Yep.
And
So true.
so my husband's really good with numbers and helped me kind of say, let's just test this out for 3 months at the beginning of 2021, and let's see what happens. And I mean, it was crazy. And so by April, I actually hired my first part-time junior designer, and she helped me so much, and she's still with me now. And I can see her getting more and more hours next year. And yeah, after this year, I think today I hit 6 figures. So
Oh, good.
Very
for
nice.
you.
Congratulations.
so
Congrats,
it's
yeah.
like, it's been kind of that like flip over where just in 1 year, just like trusting myself and valuing myself, and people don't, they want to pay you for the services that you provide. And
Right.
it's just about adding value and adding a more enjoyable experience. And I always tell people, like, this isn't something that should be stressful for you. Like, it's a huge decision to come up with a brand for your business, but it shouldn't be stressful. You should really enjoy having someone do this for you.
Right.
And so I think that's something that people hopefully get from me is, they enjoy the process and they end up with something they really love. So
Yeah.
That's great.
That's incredible. Yeah. Good for you. That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I thought I was trying not to put pressure on it, and I was like, there's literally 3 days left, but I had someone pay today. So
Yeah,
Nice. Still
that's good.
counts. Still
Yeah,
counts.
because the more you do it, you get a good idea of like what a specific project is worth, like how much your time is worth per hour based on the
Yeah.
project you do. And I'm sure you
Yeah.
sounds like you honed that in. I mean,
mhm.
and besides like what you just described, like in terms of like the growth, was it a matter of like really reflecting on what your time is worth and what you charge? Like, did you charge more as time went on? And I know you kind of brought someone on, but like, is there anything else specific that kind of helped drive that growth for your business?
It was really about fine tuning my packages.
Okay.
And because my goal for next year is not necessarily to make more money, it's to make the same amount of money but with less people.
Yeah.
Because I've had over 100 different people I've worked with this year, which is a lot. And so I really want to be able to have less clients and spend more time with each of those clients. And I think the main part of it has just been, I think part of it has to do with the timing. I think everybody came into this year and they were ready. They were ready to finally do something that maybe they'd been thinking about. And so I had more and more inquiries. And I had more and more people from last year. I worked with almost the same number of people last year, which is the crazy part.
Wow.
But just, yeah, providing that value and doing more. I'm doing much better with my sales calls, honestly. If I can get people on the phone for that discovery call and they can hear me and they can hear how I'm going to help them, then most of the time they'll at least sign on, even if it's the smallest package, which is perfectly fine. And then in 6 months, I just had someone who I did a brand for over the summer, and now in March we're going to do her website. So they're coming back for different parts.
Good.
Isn't it amazing what confidence can do?
Yeah,
like people buy you and people buy your personality before they're ever gonna buy any of your products or services. So it's good that you realize that.
Yeah.
That's why, like, in some of these Facebook groups with other designers and stuff, people will be like, who are just starting, they'll be like, well, how do I price this? And there's not a set price. It's just whatever you value your time to be. And it's arbitrary and it's objective to whatever you think your time is worth and your knowledge and your skill set. Because obviously you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but if you can deliver that high quality experience, then you shouldn't be afraid to ask for compensation for it.
Yeah. And what kind of problems are you solving? Like bigger problems. So you need bigger solutions.
Yeah.
Going along with that, I don't like to assume, but I'm going to here. I imagine you've increased your prices over the years. Was there ever a mental hurdle or challenge? I know some people really
Every year.
struggle. Yeah, okay, really struggle with increasing their prices. I know Tim's done it. I'm doing it again. Did you have any challenge with that?
Yeah, it's something where, again, usually in November, December, I sit down with my husband, Derek, and he tells me a price and I say, no, 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 that's way too high. And then I knock it down and knock it down. And then he says, like I said, he says, just try it for a couple months. And if it doesn't work, you can always go back.
Mhm.
And something that's been really helpful for me is I use kind of a 3-tiered system where I have 3 packages for people to choose from. And so that's something visually for me to see by at the end of the year. If I'm having a lot of people pick that highest package, maybe they need more. And that should be the middle package. And it helps me kind of shift those downward. And for me to be able to see that visually, okay, I booked none of the small package. So obviously people aren't seeing the value in that. So let's just shift things down and then, create that 3rd package higher.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, you talked about the free 30-minute consultation, and for a lot of people that's good free value that you can give them.
Mhm.
If someone were to ask you like why they should choose your services over someone else, or like maybe like describe like
Yeah.
how your customer experience is different from someone else, can you explain a little bit about that and anything unique?
Yeah, I think especially when I'm working with these clients who are just starting, and oftentimes they're not, reaching out to 5-6 designers and and, checking out, getting quotes. They're literally saying, I'm going to check out one person or I'm going to go to Fiverr. And so that's usually the sale that I'm making is, I have this small package. I understand that Fiverr's cheap and I understand there's a place for it. And I'm glad it exists for the people that need it, but they don't care about you typically. I mean, I'm not going to speak for every person that works at Fiverr, but, I want, when people work with me, I hope that they feel like someone actually cares about their business and what they're doing and is someone they can, I have people all the time ask me questions about their own business just to bounce ideas off of, because most of the time, unless you're already somehow in a group of entrepreneurs, it's just you and maybe your partner who listens to it, but isn't an entrepreneur either. And it's just not quite the same that as having someone else in that same world to say, I'm thinking about doing this service. Do you think that would be a good idea? And in my last email I send to people when the project is done is, I hope this isn't the last time we ever talk to each other. I hope we stay connected and, involved with each other. And, if there's ever anything you need, you can always ask me. And sometimes that's 6 months later and they're asking for a referral for someone else to do printing or to do, certain types of work that I don't do. But that just means that they do trust that I'm going to send them somewhere that can help them. So I think that's the sale that I'm normally making is less about me over another designer, because there's plenty of other designers that do care. And I'm friends with a lot of them. And the same thing, like I had a client the other week and she I had a discovery call and she sold candles, like made her own candles, sold them, doing very well. I'm not the designer for her because I am not an e-commerce expert. And so that's the point of that call is I still talked to her, still invested time in her, but then ended the conversation with, let me email you with 2 people I know that would be better at this than me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how you establish
just so that you end
trust.
up with the result that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And I think that's huge when you have, you mentioned, a lot of, quote unquote competitors. When you have good rapport with people like that and someone specializes in something, and not that you're trying to steal their business, but when you hands down know, hey, they can really knock this out of the park. I'll do a pretty good job on this, sector, whatever it is, but they will absolutely crush it. When those people get that, I think everyone's just going to get that much more business.
Yeah. And it's so great. And I feel like I can't not mention this group, even though I doubt she'll ever hear this, but there's a woman out of Texas. Her name's Melissa, and she started this Slack group called the Designers Cohort. And it's basically all people who have been around. They're not just, I mean, some of them are just starting out, and it's just a group of all designers in Slack. And everyone is super open and transparent, and it's just such a great community. And I think that's something that really encouraged me this year, to be like seeing these people share how much money they were making doing the same thing that I'm doing, at the same level. And so I think being in a group like that, whether it's just on Slack or in person or wherever, where you can be surrounded by other people who are succeeding, is really encouraging.
100%. Yeah. And I don't think people take advantage of those types of groups enough. I know I don't.
Mhm.
Like, I'm in a handful of Facebook groups, and then it's like, oh, should I join?
And
this
it's
one or that
hard.
one? And yeah.
Yeah, because some of them are so oversaturated that it's hard to find the value.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've been in business for quite a while, and one thing we like to ask entrepreneurs is, a time or two, or an obstacle that maybe you didn't ever expect, or a really challenging hurdle along the journey of being an entrepreneur. Because I think a lot of people see, we're on social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone owns their own business, they made it, they got Lamborghinis and private jets, and it's an overnight success, right? So, and you're 5, almost 6 years in, and you say it's the last year and a half when you really saw a lot of growth. So take us through a time or two where, man, I didn't see this coming. Does everyone have this? Like, what am I going to do? Is this it?
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't really know what the exact moment was, other than a few times I would have these calls, and at the end of the call, people that I'd never met before, but they came to me through someone they trust, they were like, I don't even need to see the brochure, just send me the invoice. And I'm like, okay.
Good problem to have.
Like, yeah, good problem.
I want those obstacles, man.
but like that's like the opposite of the obstacle, but that was like the turning point of seeing what this could be. And then with that growth, I think came my biggest obstacle was, how do I manage all of this? Like June of this year was my biggest month, and it's also the month that we moved with a 1.5-year-old from North Carolina to Indiana to remodel a house that we bought on FaceTime. So
that's an obstacle.
So that was
a few moving parts.
So it was a super hard month. I had never felt burnout with my work before. I had never felt like I am exhausted of doing this. And that's how I felt, because I booked too many people in too short amount of time, and I didn't book them out. And it was a real struggle. It was very hard because my assistant designer went on maternity leave, and so I didn't really have her to depend on at that time. And it was a low point. And I was going to bed at 2 a.m. and waking up at 6:30. And, because the only time I could work is when my son's napping.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I can do discovery calls, is during the day. So then the only time I'm working is from 8 o'clock until I fall asleep. And that's not what I want for myself. I want to sit on the couch and do nothing a couple times a week. And so that was something that was so hard to adjust, and it was very intimidating. I mean, we talked about confidence earlier. This podcast would have been my worst nightmare 5 years ago. I kid you not. Kelsey will tell you. Anything where people are talking to me and I know they're going to be listening or looking, I would have never done it. I would have said, no, I won't do it. And I think that's kind of come along with this. And so then the sales calls were what was the hardest thing to change, because I had done such a good job of like, this is the order that I talk to people. This is what I cover in the exact order. And now I'm having to tell people, we can't start your project right now, but I can start it in a month because I'm booked out. And I was so afraid that people were going to be like, oh, well, I don't want to wait a month to get started. And so like figuring out the best way to bring that message across without, having them be upset that there's not that instant gratification of, okay, let's just jump on this and get started. And so that's something I'm still working on, but it's gotten a lot better. And every time that I'm successfully booking someone a month or 2 months out, it's getting, better and better. But I think that was a couple of the hardest obstacles for me, is just adjusting those sales calls whenever I had been doing them in the same way for so long.
Yeah.
Now, when you're booking people out that far in advance, do you have them under a contract agreeing to, hey, I'm still going to sign on and give you business in a month, or is it kind of a handshake deal? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so they pay a deposit and sign a contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then the first payment is due upon receipt, like immediately. And then I let my clients pick between 1 and 4 total payments so that they have some flexibility over how much they pay and when. And then whenever the next payment is never due until the week of the start date.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Makes sense. Nice.
Okay. And then I wanted to ask, like, has there been, because I'm sure it's a lot, it can be a lot to handle if you're all doing it by yourself. And I know you said you brought junior designers on before. But yeah, running a business, like the invoicing part, booking meetings, whatever, is there any like software or technology you've used to help save you time and save you stress and kind of organize all your data in one place?
Yeah, so I use HoneyBook, which is a CRM, and it's designed mainly for creatives and a lot of people in the wedding industry. So wedding venues, wedding planners. But it's kind of an all-in-one. So it does, you can have email templates, invoice templates, proposals, brochures. So that's the nice thing is I don't have pricing on my website. And so I get on this discovery call and I explain the process, I explain the packages. And then when I get off, I send them this brochure, which is actually interactive for them. So they can checkbox the package that they want to move forward with.
Nice.
That automates the proposal. I send the proposal back and they can pay online, sign the contract online, and everything. All our emails live within this nice little CRM.
Gotcha.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. When did you implement that, or when did you bring that on HoneyBook?
October of 2018, I started it, and it's
I
think it's $400 a year, which is a good price. But when I first started, I was like, that's a big expense,
Yeah.
But now I could never go back to not having it because it actually integrates with your contact form on your website. So that has saved me a lot of time because oftentimes, the first person to respond can get the client.
Yeah.
And so when someone fills out my contact form, I have HoneyBook set up to send an email automatically with the link to schedule the call. And that forms the project automatically with all their details, and keeps everything really, really streamlined, which has been, I could never leave it.
Yeah.
You're thinking about a new process for your invoicing?
Oh yeah, no, because I asked that question because like with me, I use Calendly, which is like if someone reaches out to me, I can just send them a link to book a meeting.
They have the same integrations built into HoneyBook.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And I keep track of like all my customer data and like what packages are doing in Excel, which I mean, that's probably not sustainable in the long run. I'm really good at Excel. I'm really organized like initially, but I do see myself kind of doing something like that where it's like all in one. And I actually have a CRM and I can kind of streamline it even more. Cause like, it's a big expense at first and you may not see the value in it like up front, but I'm sure like all that time saved from the back and forth with clients and like emails back and forth, I'm sure like over time it's saved you so much stress and
so much time and just being able to set up all these templates for emails. I have, because I remember when I used to use Gmail, I would be having to go back and find emails because I'm sending the same type of like when I have the first concepts ready for review, I'm saying, hey, this is how they're set up. This is how you provide feedback. And now I just have a template that says all of that. I have a template when their files are ready to click to download. And it just saves so much time. So yeah, if you ever want to see it, let me know and I will be happy to screen share and show it on my side.
Yeah, for sure.
They only give a 7-day free trial, which in my opinion is not long enough to see everything that it can do.
They know that too. They know people are gonna feel that way.
They're putting the pressure on you.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
So Sarah, one kind of newer thing I've been asking some of our guests, or we've been asking, is because we started this podcast in 2018. And that was when we were each doing corporate stuff. We weren't really happy with it. So it's kind of cool to, we started in a situation we didn't prefer, and now we're each running our own businesses. How has being an entrepreneur changed you as a person, made a positive impact on you as an individual outside of business?
Again, I think it goes back. I'm just not as shy as I used to be. I'm not afraid of going into a room where I don't know anybody. Whereas I used to be, I wouldn't go anywhere unless I had somebody next to me that could go in with me. So I think that's the thing that I appreciate the most in my personal life that it has given me. And again, I think that's still only in the last 2 years.
Okay.
because I used to do everything via email. I didn't even do the calls. And I think just kind of in a different level is, my husband wasn't very happy in his job. And so after kind of seeing how this year went for me, I was like, you need to find a job that you like, even if you have to start back lower, because he had a lot of experience in a field. And I was like, but you don't like that field.
Yeah.
So, I've had the privilege of loving what I do every day, and he has not had that. And so I said, why don't, we're at a place now where we've kind of flip-flopped, and now he is at a job that he likes and is 100% remote, which is really nice. So he's home every day with me. And I think that's something that if my business hadn't taken the jump that it did this year, would not have been possible for him. So that's been something that I'm really happy that my business has been able to do for him, is getting him at a place that he likes going to work every day, likes the work that he does, and the people that he works with and all of that. So
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's great. And yeah, going off that, I'm sure, especially with the pandemic, I'm sure there's been a lot of couples, marriages, people who live together who have shared the space working from home. So like, how have you guys kind of grown your relationship or coexisted or kind of help each other out working under the same roof for an extended period of time?
Yeah, so this is the first time we've actually had separate offices.
Okay. Good.
So at his previous job, he was in sales. And so he would just drive from business to business, and he had a home office. So he didn't have an office he reported to. So we both shared an office. But now he has a separate office. I have a separate office. But I think the best part is just because we have a child, at lunchtime, if I have a call that starts at 1, our son's name is Otto. If Otto is not ready for his nap yet, Derek can kind of wait and put him down for a nap and feed him lunch. So that all of that's not on me every single day. Which has been really nice.
It's good. It takes sacrifice from both people.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah. It's and we lived in North Carolina 5 years with no family, so we've always just been together with nobody else. Even before the pandemic. So that hasn't been a problem at all for us. But I know he likes having his own, because he's a gamer too. So he has half office, half gaming setup.
Nice. Best of both worlds. I love it.
Yeah.
He's going in the office, but you don't know which office he's going.
Yeah, I know. You never know what side of the room he's going to be on.
That's great.
So Sarah, I know you mentioned about not being shy anymore with stuff. And when you tagged us in your Instagram story, I saw your cool microphone, and it looks like that's in the shot too. So do you do your own podcasts and things? You got a show going?
This is Derek's.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
I was like, man, what a sweet, old school mic.
He went through a streaming phase. So
okay.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So I said, you still have that microphone? I'd like to take it tomorrow. So I'm at a co-working space here, and they have what's called a little focus booth, and it's completely like soundproofed little room. And awesome. They reserved it for me for the podcast, and that way other people out there aren't listening to me record.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Tim, anything else for Sarah? So we always have like one last question we ask everyone, but we want to make sure that we cover everything you want to go through. Tim, anything else?
Maybe like 2 questions. So I guess my first question is, I'm sure you're very busy taking care of clients, doing the work and putting in, serving them. Are you able to budget any time, or do you budget time into like practicing your craft or like learning new information? Because I'm sure like marketing is one of those things that's like always changing. And like, is there any like information that you consume, or like anybody you learn from, or any coaches you work with to kind of better your background knowledge?
Yeah, so I've never had a coach, but I have a friend. She was the client I mentioned earlier, who now has like 3 brands, 2 websites, and she's become a really close friend. And she does kind of like career coaching.
Okay.
So more of like people in the corporate setting. But we have once a month, like a 2-hour phone call where we just kind of talk business with each other, and that's been really, really nice. And then for Christmas for myself, I bought a 1-year membership to Skillshare. I don't know if you guys have ever checked that out, but it's a website where I could go on there and make a little mini course, but you pay for the year, and you can watch, how to make patterns in Illustrator, or how to do this, or how different softwares. and it's just like independent business owners can go on there and make their own little mini courses on there. So I'm hoping I'd like to watch one little short video a week on just like something, even if it's within Illustrator, because I mean it's always changing too, Adobe, and trying out different techniques or different things like that. So I think that's something I want to do more of, is just like learn more on my own. I toyed with the idea of working with a coach specifically for design, but I just feel like, I don't know if it's the same for what you guys do, if you ever look out for coaches and things, but they always like give this thing of like $10,000 a month, $10,000 a month. Like, but I just feel like I'm already hovering there. So I don't want to pay $8,000 to somebody, when I'm getting that sometimes already. So I think that's kind of been hard, because I think I would like the structure of someone telling me, hey, work on this. But for now, this year I'm investing in like 401k. I have a bookkeeper, a monthly CPA on retainer.
Nice.
All that stuff that I don't like to do.
Right.
So that's kind of what I decided for this year to kind of focus on. So I'm setting all of that up right now.
Okay, cool. Good. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, that's all I had in terms of my questions.
Cool. Sarah, anything we haven't covered? Actually, I did have one more, kind of just came to me. I thought about it on the way here and forgot. I know you said you don't do logos by themselves really anymore. Have you ever thought about doing logos but making them NFTs?
Okay, so
I just opened up a can.
So a guy I went to college with, he has, if you ever want him on the podcast, I'm sure he would be a great person for your podcast, but his name is Brandon Spahn. And he ended up being the director of graphics for IU Athletics. And then he went and worked for the Phoenix Suns. And now he's at Arizona doing all the like senior designer for all of the athletic design, pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah. And awesome. So but he also does a lot of like hip hop and rap artists, like Photoshop painting pretty much. So he draws it, but in Photoshop. And so he did some NFT stuff. And I remember messaging him like, tell me about this. Like when it first became popular, and he kind of explained it to me, and I've looked into it a little bit, but as of right now, I don't have the time to learn about it, because I know, but TikTok knows what you want. And they've been showing me all the NFT TikToks. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Sarah, anything else? Want to make sure we cover things that you want to touch on as well. Anything else you want to make sure we hit today?
No, I think that's all. I really appreciate you guys having me on. I've been on a couple podcasts, but this is my first Indiana one.
Nice. There we go.
So
and her favorite.
yes. And as soon as I listened to Kelsey's, I got even more excited to do this. And I think it's awesome that you guys are interviewing so many different people. Again, one of my favorite things, I'm sure you guys too, you get to learn so much about different people and different industries. And it's always fun to learn, and that's what it's all about. So
yeah,
100%. So we always end our show with asking people. Yep, I know you've seen the questions.
I wrote it down.
Preparation.
I think that's the most prepared we've ever had someone for the last question.
Yeah, that's good.
Some people like, I was thinking about it.
It's tough to answer off the fly. You have to.
It really
I know.
Is. So that's when you know if people, it's like reading the instructions before you start your test.
Yeah.
Like that's when we know if people read it. Sarah, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered? Yeah.
So it's still short, so don't get worried, but I kind of just broke it down into two parts. Like, I think professionally, I hope I'm remembered by my clients as someone who cared about them and their business, from the first call to the final email. I just hope that they enjoyed the process and feel like they could still reach out to me in the future, if they ever needed anything. And then, as a person, obviously I want to be remembered as, a good wife, good mom, a good friend, someone who is trustworthy, reliable, and just kind to everyone, and not, I always try to let people know that I'm not going to be judgmental. And so I hope that's something that people take away, even if they just meet me for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic.
I love that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sarah, thanks so much again for hanging with us today. We really appreciate it. It was a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
Thank you for your time.
Great to
Yeah.
see you guys and talk to you guys. And looking forward to listening to all the episodes. I have a lot to catch up on.
Yeah. 172.
That's right.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks again. Take care.
All right. See ya.